So, all right, so let's go into the modules, and I want to see the eraser content that I gave you. All right, so let's see here. Homework 7 resources. There's the pink eraser. If you wanted to draw a different eraser, that's fine, but this is the one that I'm giving you. All right, so I'm going to download this, say file. All right, and then I also gave you a couple of other resources. I gave you 2 fonts, right? All right. And they may be installed already. I don't know. Okay. Quizny and Daniel script. Okay, I'm going to download. I downloaded Daniel's script. I'm going to double click on it. And this is the font. Okay. Doesn't it look like the pink eraser font? It's pretty close. John's saying, I don't know. I think it's pretty good. So anyhow, I'm going to click install font.
Oh, we don't need to draw these?
No, I'm going to have you use the font.
Oh, okay.
All right. Isn't that better? You can draw it by hand if you want.
I think it's easy.
You can draw it by hand if you want. So I just installed it. Let me install Quincy, excuse me. Hit install. All right, so it's installed. If I want to validate it, I go to all fonts and I'm going to look for it. Where are you, Quincy? You can see I have a bunch of fonts. QURS, PQ. Huh. I don't see it in here. If I do a search. I think almost every time I try to do a search for it in here, it never works. See that? It's not clicking.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna move on. Let's see what happens.
We don't care about verifying.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, all right? So let me go to my type tool. I'm gonna click once. Remember the difference between clicking once and drawing a box?
Yeah.
Right, so this is graphical text. If I draw a box, that's word processing text, right? All right, so let's see. Test, I'll select this. And I'm going to go to Command T. That's my type menu. And let's see if Quincy is here. OPQ. Oh, there it is. Quincy. All right. So there's one of my fonts. It should have the other one. All right. So I'm ready to go with my fonts. I know that I can use those in my illustration. I'm going to place the eraser image. What I should do is best practice. So let's do that. Here's my pink eraser. It was in the download folder. I'm going to make a new folder for myself in this mess of folders that I have. And this is called homework. What homework is this? 7? Homework 7. I'm going to place my pink eraser image in my homework 7 folder. You can see that it's there. Okay. And this is going to help me stay organized. I'm going to go to Illustrator. I'm going to place the image, and I'm going to select it, hit place the image. Now, this is really big, so it doesn't fit on my canvas, or not canvas, this is Illustrator, artboard. So I'm going to scale this and position this to fit better. Okay, and I'm going to double click on layer 1. I'm going to turn it into a template, and I'm going to name it reference image. Hit OK. So it's locked. That means I can't draw on it. Am I ready to go? Am I ready to work on this?
No.
What's wrong with it?
We need a new layer, and it needs to not be dim.
It needs not to be dim. So why is it important that this is not dim? You guys pick up on this on our pencil exercise? Why is it important that this is not dim? When I was illustrating the pencil, at some point, I used a tool
Oh, the color picker.
to sample the color. So if I go to the color picker, is it going to sample the correct pink? No, it's going to sample this really, really light pink. It's not the right color. So I need the correct color. I know that. So I'm going to uncheck dim. I want full saturation on it. I'm now going to make a new layer, and I'll start drawing off of this. So there's a couple of different ways that I might approach drawing this. Okay, so I'm not going to illustrate the whole thing. I'm just going to share with you, based on what we've discussed, these are the things that I may use. I'm not going to use live paint though, okay? Just other basic tools. All right, so one way that I might go about doing this is, this kind of looks like a rounded rectangle. We had a conversation about primitives, right? So I'm going to draw a rounded rectangle, right? And you'll notice that some of these lines tend to match the object that I have here. So with the bounding box, I'll try to change and distort this shape to get it to match. Now, it only matches to a certain degree. That means I have to distort the shape, right? So before I start distorting the shape, though, I want you to notice that I have these little bullseye icons along the corners, okay? Do you guys know what these are called? Do you know what these are called? So it's a visual aid, and it is called the corner widget. The corner widget, okay? So if it says hide, that means it's active. If it says show, you're not seeing them. But the corner widget is an interactive corner where if I drag in, it changes the curvature. If I push away, it makes the radius smaller. So it alters the radius of this shape. Does that make sense? Now, you'll notice that the radius looks pretty accurate right here. Over here, it doesn't match the line. So what I have to do is go to my white arrow. Remember, I said I was going to show different techniques. I started with a primitive. That's the example here. I started with a primitive. I'm going to grab the anchors. I drew a box. Let me turn off my reference image. I drew a box with my white arrow. So see, it grabbed this little cluster of anchors and it left those unchecked or unselected. So now that I grab those, I'm going to use my arrow keys to try to reposition these. Okay? So this is one way that I might distort a shape to get it to match to my blueprint. So I started with a primitive and then I distorted it. That's a possibility. Okay? And maybe I would do that for the rest of these faces. All right? How else might I approach this? Well, another way, maybe I go to the pen tool. We learned the pen tool the other day, right? So I'll draw here, and I'll pen out my own shape. Now, when I go to the direct select tool, the white arrow, and I click on each corner, what appears on each one of these corners? The corner widget again. So I can click on this corner and manipulate that radius with the corner widget. Grab this corner, manipulate that one. Grab this corner. Ooh, this one looks pretty off though. So that means that I have to reposition some of these anchors. All right, grab this corner, drag in the corner widget. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, Anshuman. I want to put the right color on this. What would you do?
Press I and then pick the color.
Press I. That activates the eyedropper. Then what?
Click on the color.
There, I just added the color to it. Okay, so I'm going to create 3 layers. And the reason I'm creating 3 layers is that I perceive this object as having 3 faces on it. One top face, bottom face, side. Does that make sense? So I would probably organize it this way. So this would be my top face, and I finish that one, bottom, and then side. Okay, let me put a red, pink fill. When I draw this bottom face, am I concerned about this edge right here? When I draw this bottom face, am I concerned with this edge? What do you think? doesn't this shape define that edge? So as long as this shape is what? This edge will always define it. This existing edge will always define it. If this shape is below this one, this edge will define it. Does that make sense?
What about the little like glow on the edges?
The little glow on the edges? You mean these little radius right here?
Yeah.
What tool did you learn today that might allow you to make that transition? The blend. Maybe the blend. It's worth investigating. Okay? So look, I'm going to go to the bottom layer and I'm going to pen out like I said, I haven't drawn this, so this is the first time I've done this demo. So check this out. Is the corner widget working? Okay, but I have to reposition it. What other tool could I use besides the corner widget to get this shape right here? The pen tool. Which specific part? The convert anchor point. Okay, so I'm going to click on this corner with a convert anchor point, and I'm going to stretch out those handles. Remember those handles we saw? So I said we've learned a lot of tools at this point that would allow me to illustrate this. Oops, I don't like that. Okay. So look, I'm having a hard time bending this line to get it to match. So I realize now that I need an additional anchor.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click somewhere in the middle, like right here, and I'm going to use this anchor to help me find accuracy along that edge. All right, ooh, pretty nice, right? So you'll notice on this side, look, I'm just leaving it like that. Just leaving it like that. And this side is beyond the edge. Right, I'm going to sample it. Whoops. There we go. So this shape is not super accurate, but that's okay, because remember the top shape is going to finish it. Okay, now this is off, but that's okay, because like if I stack this one in between the two, this shape will define this edge. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the text? What am I going to do with the text, everyone? So I will make a new layer on top. Call this my type. I use the term copy a lot for my text, and I'm going to write pink pearl. So I think this is the one for Papermate, huh? That's the font for Papermate. What was was Daniel script? Is that what it was called? All right, Daniel script. There it is, Daniel script. So I'm gonna use the option box here a little bit to try to scale this to be the right size. And maybe I should have written pink on its own line and pearl on its own. But you can see, generally speaking, I'm getting close. Does that make sense? And you'll notice that this text, because we're not looking at the eraser straight on, it's on an angle, right? So this text right now is as if we're looking right above it. What tool did we learn today that would allow me to create that distortion? Shear tool. Shear tool. There was another one.
Free transform.
The free transform. There was a perspective tool in there that might help me out. So I'm going to go to the shear tool. Where are you, shear tool? Shear tool. And shear. What do you think? That one's pretty good, right? So that's it for my demo for the eraser. Hopefully that gets you started. I'm looking for illustrations. I'm not looking for photographs. Does that make sense? So I want it to look like an eraser, and I believe it as an illustration. I like to teach, as you can see here, I'm giving you a toolbox of different things to work with, and then when we have homework assignments, we're kind of putting it all together, right? So we learned a bunch of stuff today and previously, and we're putting it all together to build this illustration of an eraser. Any concerns or questions before we go into the lab? Yes? How I created the edges. Any other questions? She wants to see the hot corners again, or the, what are they called, corner widgets. John, you had your hand up.
I did, so are you okay with the type not matching exactly?
Doesn't have to be.
Okay.
So look, this is how I see homework assignments. They're warm-ups, and they're sort of like little experiments to get us prepared for our more complicated project that we're going to put together. But I also see homework as an opportunity to explore the software, and just like research, the more you put into it, the more you get back. But what do I think is an appropriate amount of time? I think if you spent 45 minutes on a homework, I think you're just right. Maybe you're really good and you can illustrate this in 10 minutes, kudos to you, right? If you're taking 3 hours or 4 hours to write a line of text, we're in trouble. And you should be asking for help. You know what I mean? And I know that these first homework assignments might be a little heavy because we're learning, but like the Rigby, tracing around Rigby, that shouldn't take 3 hours. There's a problem if that's taking 3 hours. Okay, if it took you a half hour, I think that's fair. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so look, I drew a rectangle, right? And I'm gonna click on this little widget right here, and you'll notice that when I have the object selected with the black arrow, all 4 widgets are working at the same time, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the white arrow and click on that corner. Now that I only have that corner selected, now this widget is working on its own. I click on this corner, now this widget is working on its own, okay? Now, I also need to distort this edge because it's not aligning. This side and this edge are not aligned. So I'm grabbing all of these anchors. It's kind of hard to see, but there's an anchor here and an anchor there. I'm selecting those two, and then I'm going to move them to get it to match. Okay, I could have also used my arrow keys to help me move them. Okay, does that make sense? That's basically how I distorted the rest of the shape. Are we good, everybody?